All right, so let's get right into it. How does a president who just got re-elected on a promise of peace, turn around and convince an entire nation to jump into the biggest, most brutal war the world had ever seen? Well, today we're going to pull apart one of the most important speeches in American history to find out. Just listen to those words for a second. A fearful thing. That's President Woodrow Wilson talking to Congress, asking them to declare war on Germany. Now, those don't sound like the words of a guy who's eager for a fight, do they? He sounds like a man who's actually crushed by what he's about to ask. And that's really the big question we're tackling here. I mean, how did the man who won with the slogan, "He kept us out of war," use his words to pull off one of the most stunning U-turns in political history? It's a fascinating puzzle, and we're going to put the pieces together. To really get what's going on, you have to feel the pressure of that moment. This wasn't just any old speech. This was a high-wire act, and the fate of a nation, maybe even the world, was hanging in the balance. You see, this was an official, formal act of state. Wilson wasn't just trying to get a round of applause. He was asking for a vote for real-world action. And while he was speaking to Congress, his real audience was, well, everyone. The American people, our allies, our enemies, and, yep, even the history books. And because he was speaking to so many different people at once, Wilson was walking this incredibly fine rhetorical tightrope. I mean, one wrong word, one phrase that lands the wrong way, and the whole thing could have just fallen apart. Think about this for a second. He had to craft a single message that worked for totally different groups. He had to be persuasive for Congress, but comforting to a public that voted for peace. He had to sound completely committed to the Allies while showing unbreakable resolve to Germany. I mean, talk about a tough crowd. So this was the balancing act. He had to be firm, but not look like he wanted a fight. He had to make it sound like a moral crusade, but also a practical necessity. He had to seem heartbroken about going to war, but totally ready to win it. It's a nearly impossible tone to strike, but he nailed it. So, how in the world did he do it? Okay, let's pull out the rhetorical scalpel, because the real genius is in the nitty-gritty details of a single sentence. This is where the magic happens. So here it is again. This one line, this single passage is an absolute masterclass in persuasion. It's built on 4 really clever techniques. First up, he totally disarms his opponents. How? By agreeing with them. He calls war fearful, terrible, disastrous. He's basically saying, I get it. I hear your fears. In fact, I have them too. Right away, that makes him way more credible than some leader just banging the war drums. Okay, so after he's validated all those fears about war, he pivots. And he does it on a single, tiny word, but. That one word completely flips the entire argument on its head. Everything before it was the terrible cost. Everything after it is the reason they have to pay that cost. Next, he zooms out. The whole thing starts small, right? He's focused on this, people, meaning America. But by the time he's done, he's talking about making the world itself free. He just took a national security problem and turned it into a heroic moral crusade for all of humanity. And finally, he hammers it home with pure rhythm. Just listen to it. For democracy, for the right, for the rights. It's like a drumbeat, and it just builds and builds, creating this feeling of unstoppable purpose. It's powerful, it's memorable, and wow, is it persuasive. But here's the thing. The genius of this speech wasn't just in what Wilson said. It was also in what he very carefully didn't say. This is such a key tool in the art of persuasion. You know, sometimes the best way to make your case is to just leave out the parts that would complicate things or make people ask uncomfortable questions. And Wilson was a master at this. He didn't mention the massive loans American banks had made to the Allies, which, might make the war look like it was about money. He didn't bring up the military draft that would be needed or the possible casualty numbers. By leaving all that messy stuff out, he kept the argument on this high, noble moral ground. So you've got this amazing sentence structure and these strategic omissions. But they were all working together to build a classic argument for war, using the 3 ancient pillars of rhetoric. First, you've got ethos. That's all about the speaker's credibility. And Wilson's credibility was based on this great paradox. People trusted him to lead them into war because he had tried so dang hard to keep them out of it. They truly believed him when he said this was the absolute last resort. This chart here really nails his unique kind of authority. You see, he wasn't like a veteran who could say, I was there. His credibility came from a completely different place. His core message was, look, I have tried everything else and nothing worked. It's the incredibly powerful message of the exhausted peacemaker. Then there's pathos, which is the appeal to emotion. And this is where Wilson was so restrained, so controlled. He didn't try to whip everyone into an angry mob. Instead, he appealed to this very solemn, heavy emotion, the sheer weight of the decision they were making. It was the tone of a serious statesman, not a rabble-rouser. And finally, logos, the appeal to logic. Wilson laid out this almost mathematical 5-step proof that was designed to make war feel completely inevitable. It just flows from one point to the next until it feels less like a choice and more like the only possible answer. But take a closer look at step number 3. This is the big move. He makes this huge leap from German submarines sinking ships, which is basically a shipping dispute, to a global epic battle between democracy and autocracy. Now, that reframing was pure genius. It turned a practical problem into a noble quest. And all of this brings us to the final, really critical question that this speech still forces us to ask, even today. So where's the line? When does wrapping a practical decision in all this big moral language actually help us understand what's at stake? And when does it just hide the messy, real-world costs of a decision like war? That line is razor thin, and it's something worth thinking about every single time a leader tries to persuade us of anything.